Tonight, National Economic Council suspends the removal of petrol subsidy for now until a more favorable time after the transition to a new administration. President Muhammadu Buhari meets with progressive governors in Abuja, says overconfidence, complacency and back tactics are responsible for the loss by opposition parties in the 2023 presidential elections. Federal government assures citizens that the first batch of Nigerian students stranded in Sudan will arrive on Friday, following viral video of some students stranded in Egypt.
On business news tonight, NNPC Limited signs agreement with Norwegian firm to build floating liquefied natural gas plant in Nigeria.
And on sports news tonight, all 26 players in the final Golden Eaglet squad for the Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations passes compulsory MIR tests as the team seek to end a 16-year title drought in Algeria.
And from Abuja, Supreme Court grants the federal government leave to file 9 new grounds of appeal against the release of indigenous people of Biafra leader Nnamdi Kanu.
And in international news from London, there are reports that units on the front line in Ukraine are running out of ammunition ahead of an expected counterattack against Russia.
To go or not to go, that perhaps best describes the removal of petrol subsidy right now. This follows the announcement by the National Economic Council to hold action on the planned removal at its valedictory meeting, which was chaired by the Vice President today. Now, briefing State House correspondents, the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, stated that the NEC concluded in its meeting that it is not a favorable time for the removal until after the transition. According to her, the meeting deliberated on the matter and resolved that it cannot be removed for now, but it equally agreed on the need to continue discussion on the matter and continue the necessary preparatory work in conjunction with states and representatives of the incoming administration.
What I said is that it is not going to be removed now, which means it will not be removed before the transition is completed. That's what it means. But then we have 2 laws that have inadvertently made the provision that we should exit by June. So if the committee's work, which will include the representatives of the incoming administration, determine that the removal can be done by June, then the work plan will be designed to exit as of June. But if the determination is that the period needs to be extended, it will mean that we will have, as a country, will have to revisit the Appropriation Act, for example, because the 2023 budget only made provision up to June. So if we are extending beyond June, it means we have to revisit the Appropriation Act and do a supplementary or amend the bill, and also the PIA. We that are here now are going to do the work with the representatives of the incoming administration, and we will exit and leave them to continue with the implementation of the plan. And so there will be an expanded committee so that it is not just a few people's thoughts that will guide the process, that there is sufficient consultation, taking inputs from key stakeholders into the measures that need to be taken.
Meanwhile, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, is making it clear that the allegation of a loss of over $2.4 billion from illegal sale of 40 million barrels of crude oil is baseless. He made this known when he appeared before the House Ad Hoc Committee, which is investigating the matter. According to Mr. Malami, after investigating the allegation, it was observed that the origin of the crude allegedly lost in China was unknown, and this was communicated to President Muhammadu Buhari.
The allegations relating to the 48 million barrels are baseless. The allegation is unfounded, is lacking in merit, and indeed lacking in substance. It is, in its own right, the allegation devoid of any reasonable ground pointing to a material suspicion and cogent enough to invoke the constitutional oversight of the committee. All accounts associated with the recoveries, generally speaking, are being maintained by the central bank and are being opened on the request of the Office of the Attorney General and then opened on the directives of the Office of the Accountant General. As far as being a signatory or in any way being responsible in the management of such accounts is concerned, the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation is in no way connected whatsoever. So whatever information that may be required as it relates to the details of the signatories, details of the management, details of the disbursement associated with the account, I suggest that the Federal Ministry of Finance, the Office of the Accountant General, and the Central Bank are the exclusive custodians, managers, and the operators of the account, and not the Office of the Attorney General.
Well, let's switch to politics now and talk about the May 29 inauguration, which is already counting down. Well, the president-elect, Senator Bola Tinubu, has met with governors on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, who paid him a courtesy visit at his private residence in Abuja. The chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, who is also the governor of Kebbi State, Mr. Atiku Bagudu, says the visit is to congratulate the president-elect over his election and also welcome him back from his recent trip abroad.
It's another day of full activities at the residence of the president-elect. Members of the Progressive Governors Forum, led by the governor of Kebbi State, are coming to pay homage. Other dignitaries, including serving senators and traditional rulers, also joined the visiting group. As soon as they enter the building, the doors are closed for a meeting. When the meeting ends, the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum came out to encourage Nigerians to remain optimistic.
President-elect was magnanimous in expressing his thoughts in the Renewed Hope Manifesto. He told the world what he's promising. He had been on campaign trails across the country, and he has expatiated on that. So, President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has offered renewed hope for the nation, and I believe we will see more of it.
Some senators who were part of the meeting appealed to all Nigerians to give the incoming administration a chance.
We should pray, and we should cooperate with the government and wish the government well, so that the government, I know the government has very, very good intentions, fantastic intentions to uplift the lives of the people of this country, to bring unprecedented development.
I think the courts are in a position to decide, but I don't think it's a problem. Nigerians have a right to go to court, and the courts also have a right to, independence of the government.
The issue of the leadership of the 10th National Assembly again came to the fore.
The leadership of the party, working with Mr. President-elect, will direct as they think is to the best interest of not only the country, the government, and indeed our great party.
First of all, he's been zoned. It had to be zoned. When it's zoned, then you go from there. That's what happens. Once it's zoned, then look at who are you zoning it to. The person must be very loyal to the person that is in charge. He must know who he picks must be someone that relies to him.
The meeting, which lasted for a few hours, was attended by the Vice President-elect, Senator Kashim Shettima, and other APC stalwarts.
Well, the progressive governors also met with the president at his residence, where he told them that overconfidence, complacency, and bad tactical moves are the main reasons why the opposition parties lost this year's presidential election. President Buhari stated that while the All Progressives Congress was working hard to retain power during the recent elections, the opposition were already telling their foreign backers that they would defeat the APC. In a statement by the presidential spokesman, Mr. Garba Shehu, the president also believes that the overconfidence of the opposition is creating more problems for them than anyone else. President Buhari further appeals to the progressive governors to stick together and openly address issues among themselves, as it remains the best way to survive politically in Nigeria. We're still talking politics. The Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, is urging the National Assembly to zone the Senate presidency of the 10th National Assembly to the South-South or Southeast geopolitical zone for the sake of equity. The chairman of IPAC, Mr. Yabagi Sani, made this known during a press conference in Abuja. He also added a prayer for the engagement of women and the youth in government, as no nation makes progress without the active participation of these groups of people.
IPAC is of the strong opinion that the Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria should be zoned to either the Southeast or South-South geopolitical zones. This, of course, is without prejudice to the ongoing election petitions at the various election petition tribunals in the country. IPAC demands more appointments of women and youth in government as the most vibrant democratic groups in the country. The continued marginalization of women and youth in the previous and incumbent government must stop forthwith. No nation makes progress without the active participation of women and youth.
Let's move outside our shores and bring you up to speed with the situation in the war in Sudan. Well, hours before the ceasefire, which is cut short in the northeast country of Africa, well, 90 Nigerian students are still unsure of how and when they will be saved from the crossfire in Sudan. Now, more than 1,600 of the students are reported caught by the resumption of hostilities, in spite of the federal government's promise of evacuating them with about 40 buses procured for $1.2 million. Our next report captures the experience of some of them who were left in the cold until they agreed to submit their international passport to the drivers of the buses who are protesting not being paid.
Place that our mothers and our sisters are living in the International University of Africa. You can see
a call for help from one of the many Nigerians caught in the violent conflict in Sudan as they camp in an open area at the International University of Africa in the capital, Khartoum.
So we have been pleading with the Federal Republic of Nigeria to help us so that we can get out of this place.
Help eventually came for them from the Nigerian government, as they were able to join the first batch of 13 buses which left for the Aswan border in Egypt on Wednesday. But even that journey wasn't as smooth.
Can you imagine that we are stuck in this desert for 4 hours?
She says the drivers stopped midway and wouldn't move until they received full payment, in spite of the federal government saying it had paid a total of $1.2 million to evacuate them.
The vehicle drivers, they said they are not moving their bus. They said they are not moving their buses because they don't give them money. Which type of attitude is this one? Look at this one, we are stuck in desert. We don't even have compass. We don't know the place we are.
The chairman and CEO of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Abike Dabiri Erewa, reacted to the video via tweet saying, "Just spoke to NEMA Nigeria. They have started moving again. Whatever issues they have has been resolved." She also said the first batch is expected back home by Friday, but the evacuation is not without some challenges.
3,500 students, yes, but Nigerians are now coming, without even any documentation. So now say they want to come back. There's a lot of tension, there's a lot of desperation. So in fact, yesterday, in the evacuation, very strict, because people who never even showed up wanted to even chance the students.
But there are over 1,000 Nigerians still waiting to be evacuated. Abubakar Sadiq is one of those left behind. He says there's been an airstrike in spite of the ceasefire. He fears that a ceasefire may not hold for much longer.
Around 4 p.m. today, while we are at the camp waiting for the embassy officials to arrive, and there is no presence of the embassy officials at the camp, We were waiting for them since 6 a.m. early in the morning. There is no update from them until now. There is no update from the embassy. Around 4 p.m. while we were waiting for them, there was an airstrike around our camp. It's just 1 kilometer or less away from us. And it was a terrible experience, actually. Very terrible experience.
For Abubakar and many others, they wait anxiously for a miracle, hoping to see their families back home soon. Kayode Okikyolu, Channels Television News.
In part 2 after the break, at least 10 persons are dead after a tanker filled with petrol exploded in Jos, Plateau State. To join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live from Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. National Economic Council suspends the removal of petrol subsidy for now until a more favorable time after the transition to a new administration. President Muhammadu Buhari meets with progressive governors in Abuja, says overconfidence, complacency and bad tactics are responsible for the loss by opposition parties in this year's presidential elections. Federal government assures citizens that the first batch of Nigerian students stranded in Sudan will arrive on Friday, following viral video of some students stranded in Egypt. And rival factions of Sudan's military agreed to renew a 3-day ceasefire shortly before it was due to expire, following intensive diplomatic efforts by neighboring countries, as well as the US, UK, and the UN.
Please. Wannan shi ne kan mota wacce ta ɓace. Kuma sa da Allah to tunda kun ji tana haka.
We're indeed heading to the north-central part of the country with some sad news from the pictures you see there, where at least 10 persons have died following an explosion at Bochio Road Junction in Jos, the Plateau State capital, as a petroleum tanker conveying premium motor spirit, or PMS, lost control, crashed and burst into flames. The Plateau State Police Command confirmed the incident, stating that a team of detectives were deployed to the scene of the accident to determine the level of damages. On arrival at the scene, the lifeless bodies were evacuated and deposited at the morgue of the State Specialist Hospital, while rescue operation was carried out, in which 3 vehicles and 2 tricycles affected by the inferno were recovered from the scene. Security operatives are already removing obstacles placed on the road by the fire to enable free flow of traffic and to enable those who might know the burnt victims identify them. At the scene of the incident is a major traffic intersect that links the route to the northeast region of the country. We're now ready to head to the nation's capital, and Victor Mathias is standing by from our Abuja studios to give us the very latest. Great to have you again, Victor.
Absolutely, Ayatunde. Welcome to the nation's capital, Abuja. And we begin with words of advice from the president, where he says African development should dominate the minds of all Africans, local or in the diaspora. President Muhammadu Buhari made the call at the 2nd edition of the Global African Diaspora Symposium, which was held at the banquet hall of the State House in Abuja. Now, this is coming just as calls are being made for countries to adopt actionable diaspora strategies that will ensure the true potential of Africans in the diaspora are harnessed for the good of the continent. Our State House correspondent, Kela Megwa, reports.
64 countries are participating in this 2nd edition of the Global African Diaspora Symposium, focused on building stronger connections between Africa and the global diaspora. These connections have become necessary considering the migration of Africans in search of better conditions across the globe.
The best professionals in the world are Africans. Africans are all over the world developing world economies. Come home and develop your own continent. Come home and develop your country.
The continent accounts for just 4.97% of global wealth, and remittances from Africans in diaspora, benefiting over 200 million families, stands at $95 million as at the end of 2021. The ECOWAS president believes it is time to change gears and truly harness the population of Africans in diaspora to make real development on the continent a reality.
Any collective policy that seeks to leverage on the potential of African diaspora must reflect the heterogeneity of the group and must tailor actions in accordance with the nature and categories of that group.
Cultural displays showcase the beauty of the continent famed to be the cradle of mankind. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari, represented here by the Minister of Transport, Muazu Sambo, hopes that the outcome of this meeting will ensure that all Africans get a sense of belonging.
The diaspora have become a force to be reckoned with regards to sustainable development of their varied homelands by regional bodies and national governments through remittances, medical missions, FDI educational visits, tourism, investments and enterprises, etc.
It is largely believed by many people across the globe that the next industrial revolution will be headed by Africa. And this is going to be impossible if the continent in itself doesn't make concerted effort to harness its most important resource, its people, both on the continent and in diaspora. And that's what this event seeks to achieve. And as we heard from the speech of President Muhammadu Buhari, it is important that Africans in diaspora and Africans on the continent are on the same page when it comes to the development of the African continent. From the banquet hall of State House in Abuja, Kayla Magwa, Channels Television News.
Well, it was indeed a busy day for the president, as earlier on in the day, he said the Nigerian military has recorded remarkable transformation in its operations, particularly in the areas of main manpower and training. The president made the remark during the official unveiling of the national and regimental colors of the new and operationalized units of the Nigerian Army in Abuja. The president, who doubled as a reviewing officer, further noted that the security situation in the country has recorded tremendous improvement compared to 2015 and urged Nigerians to continue to support the military for greater successes. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezioke, reports.
For the Nigerian Army trooping and presentation of colors parade.
Clad in ceremonial military attire, President Muhammadu Buhari arrives to Eagle Square, received by the leadership of the National Assembly, members of cabinet, other top government functionaries, as well as Nigeria's former heads of state.
Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The president's first task is the inspection of parade, accompanied by the Chief of Army Staff and Parade Commander. Then he inspects the Nigerian Army trooping and presentation of colors. This is a 17th century tradition of the Army, where colors are conferred on units in recognition of their gallant deeds and the fighting spirit of a regiment.
Force Army Mechanical Transport School Board in United Kingdom, 1965.
A cocktail of bands and instruments takes center stage as they performed with calculated steps for the reviewing officer, President Muhammadu Buhari. A slow march heralds the retiring of the unit old colors in anticipation of the presentation of 28 new ones. From a total of 81 Army units, 53 colors will be retired. Prayers by the Christian and Muslim leaders go forth for their consecration. Then the president is invited to inspect the new unit colors.
Brand new unit regimental colors, after which he is now blessing.
Then the display of colors and induction.
By two sub-guard commanders.
Mounting the podium, President Muhammadu Buhari hails the progress recorded by the military so far.
This administration has achieved remarkable transformation
of the military in the areas of fighting power, training, operations, manpower, remunerations, and medical services.
Done with his task of reviewing and inducting the newcomers, the parade hails the reviewing officer. And like an anticlimax, the hooray reverberates to round up a historical event.
Former Head of State, General Yakubu Gowon.
Now, this ceremony, which comes weeks before the May 29 handover date, essentially symbolizes respect to the colors, thus promoting cohesion, esprit de corps, and loyalty to the Nigerian army, essential attributes to promoting and advancing protection of the nation's territorial integrity. From the Eagle Square, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And to other stories now, the Supreme Court has granted leave to the federal government to bring 9 new grounds of appeal against the release of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu. A 5-member panel led by Justice John Okoro granted the leave while ruling on the motion by the counsel to the federal government, Mr. Tijani Ghazali. The Apex Court also granted leave to the federal government to include these 9 new grounds as part of its amended notice of appeal dated 28th October 2022.
Mike Ozekome, the lead counsel to the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, and his team, and the team from the federal government are at the Supreme Court for the hearing of the appeal on the continued detention of Mr. Kanu. The courtroom is scanty while they await the commencement of the day's proceedings. As the resumed hearing, Nnamdi Kanu's counsel, Mike Ozekome, informed the court of his motion seeking for bail for his clients and another seeking for his transfer to Kuje Correctional Facility to get proper medical attention, citing his failing health in the custody of the DSS. He also prayed for an accelerated hearing of the matter. Speaking on the motion for transfer of Kanu out of the custody of the DSS, the counsel to the federal government prayed for an adjournment to file a counter-affidavit stating that he just took over the matter. As it seems likely that hearing of the motion, particularly that seeking the transfer of Mr. Kanu, may likely delay hearing of the main suit, the court advised Mr. Ozekome to withdraw the pending motions and focus on the main appeal. The court subsequently fixed May the 11th for hearing on the pending motion and the main appeal. Recall that the appeal court had on October the 13th, 2022, cleared Mr. Kanu of alleged treason and terrorism charges against him after dismissing the remaining 6 counts leveled against him by the federal government. The appeal court panel faulted the process of extraditing him back to Nigeria from Kenya on grounds of it being in breach of international protocol. Another panel of the same court, however, on the 28th of October 2022, reversed its earlier decision, ordering a stay of execution pending hearing and determination of the appeal of the Supreme Court.
Last night at 6:25 p.m., they served us further documents, further court processes, which have again necessitating us today taking an adjournment. But in order not to fall into their cheap trap and to escape their cheap entrapment, what we have done today is to say all those funny and phony motions you have been filing. We want extension of time to file additional grounds. We are not opposing all of them. Let all of them go in. Let us go into the main appeal. So the main appeal, by the grace of God, has been adjourned to the 11th of May, 2023, which is just less than 2 weeks, or about 2 weeks from now.
The counsel to the federal government declined to speak on its 9 new grounds of appeal against Nnamdi Kanu's release.
Still ahead on the news at 10, NNPC Limited signs agreement with Norwegian firm to build floating liquefied natural gas plant in Nigeria. That's on Business News. Join us again. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, a military officer and 24 other residents of Usa and Takum local government areas of Taraba State are said to have been killed so far in the unending feud between Kuteb farmers and herders in the state. Now, this is even as the state government brokered peace between the groups, which started last year, leading to the death of many others, including travelers, soldiers, and their commanding officers.
The unending crisis between Kuteb farmers and herders in Usa, Takum and Yangtu Special Development Area has not only caused havoc, but also created traumatic and pathetic situations. Thousands have abandoned their ancestral homes, farmland, and are now taking refuge in IDP camps spread across the southern zone of the state. Farming and school activities have come to a halt in the affected areas, thereby gradually leading to humanitarian crisis and possible famine. Just last year, peace was brokered between the feuding tribes by the state government, but the attacks are unending, and the residents here are asking the state government to launch an investigation to ascertain if those attacking them are herders or bandits.
We want the government to investigate and tell the world. It should be noted that as we speak, dozens of innocent citizens have been killed by the bandits in Takum, Usa, and Yangtu. Equally, thousands of people have been displaced from their homes. The state government has neither visited the people to sympathize with them, nor provided IDP camps and relief materials to cushion their hardships. This is indeed worrisome. I want the whole world to know that about 80% of Kuteb people are farmers. And with the current wave of attacks, if care is not taken to stop the conflict, farming activities may be grounded and famine will be inevitable in Takum, Usa, and Yangtu areas.
Efforts to speak with the state chairman of the Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association proved abortive, but the police say they are collaborating with the state government and sister agencies to ensure peace returns to the area at all costs. The police, however, say the major problem halting the return of peace is the claim by the herdsmen that their cattle are held hostage by the Kuteb farmers.
With the good collaboration we enjoy from the military and other sister agencies, in fact, I can tell you now that the area is relatively calm. No much fear and no much attacks as it used to be before. The Commissioner of Police have formed a team, a committee headed by the area commander and the divisional police officer there. Also, the Mieti Allah leader, who is based in Takum, are also involved in this committee. Very soon, they are going out to the bush where specifically those Fulani people knows that their cow have been held hostage, so that they could take there, they can release those cattle to the Fulanis.
As the rain set in the state, the residents are optimistic that the state government will take the appropriate measures to end this recurring crisis.
And now the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has been given the Pioneer Catalyst Award by the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PBEC. At the 5th PBEC Awards, which was held at the Banquet Hall of the State House in Abuja, Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business, Jumoke Oduwole, says the award's 5th installment is an opportunity to assess the progress made in ensuring Nigeria attracts more investments and growth in its business sector. Our State House correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
Switching it up.
It is the 5th edition of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council Awards, and the Banquet Hall of the State House in Abuja is filled with stakeholders, awardees, and government officials, including the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who is the chair of the council. As the event begins, the Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business, Office of the Vice President, Jumoke Oduwole, highlights the importance of these awards and the journey so far for PBEC.
Since its inception, the PBEC has delivered over 180 reforms with empirical results to show for it over time. Whether through our World Bank Doing Business rankings, Global Competitiveness Report of the World Economic Forum, or periodic independent empirical assessments, which have adjudged these reforms as impactful in terms of reduction in time, cost, and procedures to doing business, tracing some of its contributions to the GDP of Nigeria. Reforms are painstakingly, they're primarily targeted at reducing the cost and time of doing business with enhanced transparency.
2022 is the year in review and awards are given. The most improved MDA won by Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission. The Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board walked away with the most compliant agency award. The Public Sector Support Award was given to the Federal Ministry of Justice, while Gombe State won the Ease of Doing Business Ranking Award. The Vice President himself was awarded the Pioneer Catalyst Award and used the opportunity to speak on why the council was created in the first place.
The strategy was to prioritize the frontal pain points of MSMEs and install a systematic framework to resolve them. And we did this by soliciting and obtaining the support of other arms of government and other levels of the MDAs, with PEBEC representatives from the National Assembly and the Judiciary, as well as all subnational governments through the National Economic Council.
Music and dance added to the pomp and pageantry of the night. However, the knowledge of what more needs to be done to encourage businesses in Nigeria is at the back of all the minds here. While bottlenecks and policies are being fine-tuned, salient issues like electricity supply and security must be addressed to ensure the government's plans on the ease of doing business are fully achieved. From the Banquet Hall of State House in Abuja, Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
And now the latest edition of the South African Week has kicked off in Abuja. The event is designed to position both Africa to engage and network with stakeholders in various sectors, public and private sectors, as well as friends of the consulate.
An exciting environment with lights and music. And where there is music, you can be sure there will be laughter. That's the atmosphere at the inaugural South Africa Week celebrations, which kicked off on April 22, 2023, to commemorate the 29th anniversary of South Africa's democracy and 29 years of formal diplomatic relations with Nigeria. Colorfully dressed guests are here to celebrate the bond between Nigeria and South Africa.
4 or 5 years because of COVID, we've not been able to celebrate the South African National Day. What we decided to do was to actually just put it together in 1 week to celebrate all the aspects of the relationship.
To celebrate the Made in South Africa Week, several exciting programs and activities have been lined up, including social and entertainment events, sports tournament, business meetings, and investment roundtable.
From here on Friday, we will be again in Lagos, now celebrating South Africa Freedom Day in the South African way. We even say, come to Soweto, because then we'll do it the Soweto way. And then on Saturday, there's a golf tournament, which is actually hosted by the Consul General.
This celebration also seeks to promote social cohesion between South Africans and Nigerians through arts and culture. The event will also promote and position South Africa as a preferred trade and investment country that is open to business, with platforms for the exchange views, experiences, and sharing of information on matters of common interest and mutual benefit between both countries.
Nigeria and South Africa will continue to collaborate and explore avenues to monitor bilateral commitments, broaden areas of cooperation for greater mutual benefits, and deepen its brotherly ties.
Nigeria and South Africa will date a long way in terms of the relationship between the two countries, and we look forward to bigger things, greater things happening between Nigeria and South Africa for the betterment of Africa as a whole.
While celebrating the diversity of the rainbow in Nigeria, South Africa seeks to position itself as a preferred destination for tourism, education, and business.
And it is on the celebratory notes that we wrap up the news at 10 from the nation's capital. But the news at 10 continues with Anne Wowodu, who has the latest figures from the world of business.
Thank you, Victor. Nigeria's National Petroleum Corporation Limited has signed a memorandum of understanding with Golar LNG of Norway to build a floating liquefied natural gas plant in the country. According to the state oil firm, the agreement was signed in Abuja and in furtherance of its efforts to deepen Nigeria's domestic gas utilization and enhance gas export. NNPCL explains that Gola LNG is one of the world's largest independent owners and operators of marine-based LNG midstream infrastructure, and it is active in the liquefied transportation and regasification of natural gas. One of Nigeria's leading financial institutions, Fidelity Bank PLC, has released its 2022 audited financial statement. It shows another year of impressive double-digit growth across key income and balance sheet lines. Highlights of the results released on the Nigerian Exchange Limited's website shows that the bank's gross earnings grew by 34.4% year-on-year to 337.1 billion naira, driven by 45.2% growth in interest and a similar income. At the same time, the bank posted a 112.9% annual growth in profit before tax, which stood at 53.7 billion naira within the same period. And on the bank of investment and impressive performance, the bank has declared a final dividend of 40 kobo per share, which now brings its total dividend for the full year 2022 to 50 kobo per share. And to more company news now, Nigerian Brewers PLC has declared a 13.87% billion naira dividend and a profit of 13.9 billion naira for the financial year, which ended December the 31st, 2022. And this is one of the major highlights of the report and the financial statements presented to stakeholders and other stakeholders at the company's 77th annual general meeting right here in Lagos. The chair of the board of directors, Chief Kolawole Jamodu, explains that the company remains resilient despite the challenges of last year.
Of the Federal Republic.
It's the 77th annual general meeting of Nigeria's top brewer, Nigerian Breweries PLC, at the Civic Center in Lagos. And gathered here as shareholders and board members of the company, top on the agenda is the financial performance for the year ended 31st December 2022.
Statements of cash flows for the year then ended.
The financial report shows revenue rose 26% year-on-year, profit after tax that rose 8% compared to 12.97 billion naira in the corresponding year.
Thank you, Mr. Okoro.
The company declares a total dividend of 13.87 billion naira for its shareholders at 143 kobo per ordinary share of 50 kobo each. Meanwhile, the management is impressed with the performance as the company stayed resilient in a challenging year.
In spite of all the difficulties during that year, we've been able to add value to our shareholders' investment. And there is no doubt, it was very tough. But I want to thank all my colleagues.
We have been in Nigeria for 77 years, and I think the key word is curiosity, external focus, understanding changing consumer needs. It is very clear that with our brand portfolio, we've been able to capture the needs of past, present, but also future consumers, and we will continue to do so.
Shareholders are equally delighted with the performance and the dividends declared.
It's a good one because we paid of 3 billion fraction. The final 13 billion something, in all its aggregates about 17 billion. And if a company pays that out, it's a huge sum of money. And the shareholders are always happy.
As FX challenges continue to weigh on businesses, the company management says it's seeking approval for an intercompany loan from its parent company, Heineken.
We are now in a position, together with Heineken International as our major shareholder, to get a deal which is a conversion of the payables into a loan, which is a more structural solution, which we're very happy with.
The board of Nigerian Breweries PLC is confident that with their pricing strategy and cost-value agenda, Nigerian Breweries PLC is poised to navigate the challenges in the short term for long-term value to shareholders and customers.
Well, talking about shareholders, they'll be happy today because the stock market extended the positive performance recorded so far this week as its year-to-date gain increased 1.9% amid a significant decline in total volume of shares traded today. Larry Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, I did hope on Tuesday the positive open would set the tone for the week, and apparently it's shaping up to be a positive outing this week. And we see the bull there shining today. Let's look at the all-share index, 0.27%, 52,235.88 points for the all-share index. Market cap inching back to that 29 trillion level, 28.442 trillion is what we have today. Let's look at the activity chart. Red volume value, 17.6 billion there, lower than what we had yesterday, but we see deals still raging up there. 6,958 deals. That's what we traded today. Let's look at the sectoral performance. We see oil and gas, 0.15% in the green, snapping up the losses we've seen, the trend we've seen in the past couple of weeks. Banking, that's down 0.45%. Consumer goods there shining today, up almost 2%, 1.98%, thanks to Honeywell Flour at about 28 kobo to its share price, followed closely by Cadbury Nigeria PLC, popping that counter up. Well, it's a positive market breadth we have today, 26 stocks gained against 18 decliners. Final trading day tomorrow. Let's see if the bulls sustain this trend to end the week. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Ladi Williams.
Thanks for watching Business News Tonight. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Ayatunde.
Many thanks, and well, let's head back to Sudan and tell you what's happening as far as the fighting there is going on. Well, the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, have agreed to renew a 3-day ceasefire shortly before it expires at midnight. The extension for another 72 hours follows intensive diplomatic efforts by the United States, the United Kingdom and the United Nations, and of course neighboring countries. Here's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. There are reports that units on the front line in Ukraine are running out of ammunition ahead of an expected counterattack against Russia. Despite the recent arrival of modern weapons like tanks and armoured vehicles, Ukraine remains heavily reliant on its older Soviet-era arsenal. Ukraine's call for more weapons and ammunition has only become louder the longer the war has gone on. This unit's commander says towns like here in Bakhmut will fall to Russian forces soon if more ammunition isn't provided. People in Sudan are continuing to flee the country as fighting continues. The majority of Sudanese escaping their country have fled to Chad. Around 20,000 refugees have so far made the journey. The current ceasefire, which has largely been respected, is due to end at midnight tonight local time. Over 300 United Nations staff members and their relatives who were based in Sudan have arrived at Nairobi airport. The crisis has sent growing numbers of refugees across Sudan's borders, with the UN Refugee Agency estimating 270,000 people could flee into South Sudan and Chad alone.
We needed to bring our staff out. The situation continues to deteriorate, continues to get less and less secure, and it was essential that non-essential staff were brought out and the dependents. The situation in Sudan even before this crisis was bad, huge humanitarian needs. This is only going to make the situation worse. Over 15 million people needed humanitarian support before. I suspect that that number is going to double, if not increase even further.
Thai police say they have arrested a woman suspected of killing 12 of her friends and acquaintances by poisoning them with cyanide. Sararat Rangsi Wuttaporn was arrested in Bangkok following recent inquiries into a friend's death. The victim's family had raised suspicions after she died on a trip with Sararat earlier this month. Following inquiries, police this week said they believed Sararat had killed 11 others, including an ex-boyfriend. NATO's Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg has welcomed the first phone call between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Zelensky described the hour-long phone call as long and meaningful and said Xi had expressed words of support for the extension of a deal to export Ukrainian grain from its Black Sea ports.
I welcome the call between President Zelensky and President Xi.
But Stoltenberg told a news conference this doesn't change the fact that China has not been able to condemn Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine.
I think it's important also that China gets a better understanding of the Ukrainian perspectives. This doesn't change the fact that China has not been able to condemn Russia's illegal war, illegal invasion of Ukraine.
British actor Hugh Grant has arrived in London's High Court for a phone hacking case against News Group newspapers. Grant's case is similar to that of Britain's Prince Harry, who is suing Murdoch's NGN for multiple unlawful acts allegedly committed on behalf of its tabloids, The Sun and now defunct News of the World, from the mid-90s until 2016.
Morning, Hugh. Hey, morning.
News Group newspapers, which has settled more than 1,000 phone hacking cases over the past decade, is trying this week to strike out Harry's and Grant's cases, arguing they should have taken action sooner. And Tucker Carlson has broken his silence after his departure from Fox News in a video lashing out at what he calls liars trying to silence honest people.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how
the short video was posted on Twitter 2 days after his exit. He did not share the reason for his departure or speak about his future plans. Fox News has said it and Carlson had agreed to part ways. His exit came days after Fox settled a defamation lawsuit over its reporting of the 2020 presidential election. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. It's time to talk sports. It's good news from the camp of the national under-17 squad, the Golden Eaglets, as all 26 players of the final list passed the compulsory MIR test in Algeria ahead of their opening game against Zambia on Sunday. The Golden Eaglets of Nigeria is making a record 10th appearance at age-grade tournament in Algeria, hoping to win the tournament for the first time since 2007. The two-time African champions are in Group B alongside Morocco, Zambia, South Africa in what many consider the group of death. And Newcastle moved another step closer to Champions League football next season and pushed Everton even closer to the championship with a 4-1 win at Goodison Park this evening. Eddie Howe's men were far from their best, but still far too good for the Toffees as Callum Wilson scored twice. Joe Linton was also on target as Newcastle opened up an 8-point cushion over 5th place Aston Villa with a game in hand still to come. Now Son Heung-min has scored a 79th minute equalizer in the other encounter to complete a fine Tottenham comeback against Manchester United in Riyad Mason's first game back as interim boss. Away from football, Giannis Antetokounmpo insists Will Walker's season has not been a failure after the Bucks crashed out of the playoffs at the first hurdle. The top-seeded Bucks were bundled out of the Eastern Conference playoffs in stunning fashion, losing 128-126 in Miami Heat in overtime in front of their home crowd at Milwaukee's Forum. For the second straight game, Milwaukee collapsed in the fourth quarter, squandering a large double-digit lead as a Jimmy Butler-inspired Miami stormed to victory. And away from the NBA, Dominic Thiem has now cruised into the finals of the NBA. But of course, that does it for us here in the world of sport. Thanks indeed for watching. I am Kelly Egiga.
Many thanks, Kelly. And the main news again. The National Economic Council today announced the suspension of the removal of petrol subsidy for now. Well, the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, who briefed journalists after the Council's valedictory meeting, said NEC concluded that the subsidy removal should be left until a more favorable time after the transition to a new administration. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. Have a good night.